On a cold, chilly evening of March 22nd, 2018, a young girl walked up to the doorstep of a nearby dairy farm. Covered in blood, mud, and bruises, she frantically knocked on the door and asked for a doctor, claiming that she was assaulted. The occupant of the house called 911.
County 911, what's the address of the emergency?
I have a young lady that just came to my house and somebody attacked her and she needs a doctor. Her clothes are all torn.
Okay, and can you ask her what her name is?
Just hold on a second.
Okay.
What's your name, ma'am? What? You don't know? But it's a young lady that's here that needs help.
Yep.
Pretty quick.
Yep, I have an ambulance and some officers started that way. Did she say who did this to her?
Did she what?
Did she say who did this to her?
No, she said she was attacked, assaulted, and she's from Eau Claire.
She was then taken to a nearby hospital and asked for her ex-boyfriend, Jason Mango, and told the police and nurses that she had no clue to the events that had transpired prior. Hospital staff found the word boy carved into her left arm. Ezra McCandless was born Monica Kay on October 6, 1997 in Stanley, Wisconsin. She was put up for adoption shortly after. Her parents adopted her when she was 4 years old, and she had a close relationship with her father after her parents divorced. As she grew older, she found that she wasn't like all the other kids her age and began experimenting with different pronouns, finally deciding on the name, Ezra McCandless. She then dropped out of college and moved out to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, where she met and fell in love with Jason Mango, a National Guard medic. Jason stated in an interview that he was deeply in love with this girl. Despite the huge age gap, they made the relationship work. At the time, he was 33 and she was only 19. Jason said that she brought the best out of him and kept him energized and happy. Ezra, an amateur artist, was pretty known in the small town of Eau Claire. She used her car as a canvas with intricate and unique illustrations all over. Ezra and Jason moved in together towards the end of 2017, and during the course of their relationship, they would meet up at a place called Racy's, a local coffee shop, at which time they had met a substitute teacher and a barista working there, 23-year-old Alex Woodworth. Alex was a family man, taking care of his siblings and loved helping others. He saw that his new friend Ezra was going through problems and wanted to help out. Seeing this, Jason pushed the two together so that her problems will alleviate. As she got to know Alex, Ezra also found out that she was pregnant with Jason's child. Not wanting children, she scheduled an abortion. As time went on and the two began to know each other on a more deeper level, she began a secret romantic relationship with Alex. In February of 2018, Ezra claimed that she was assaulted by one of Jason Mango's friends when she was passed out at a party. Law enforcement and detectives investigated the claim and even interviewed Alex Woodworth, whose story did not corroborate with Ezra's version of the events. Due to this and the lack of evidence, the case was dropped. A few days later, as Jason headed out on National Guard duty, Ezra moved back in with her mother. Jason would often come back and they would meet up at hotels. During one of the meetups, Jason would go through Ezra's phone and find texts between Alex and Ezra. This discovery didn't end there. He also found out that Ezra was also seeing one of Jason's friends, a John Hansen, who was the subject of the sexual assault case a while prior. This argument ended up happening publicly and would be the end of their relationship. Ezra told Alex to never speak to her again and blamed him for her and Jason's relationship ending. She wrote journals and letters and wanted to see Jason to hand-deliver them, who had refused. He told her to send it to him another way as he didn't want to see her and that he had had enough. On March 22, 2018, Ezra showed up unannounced to Eau Claire and ended up meeting Jason Mango at Racy's and started talking to him, still wanting to get back together. In an interview, Jason stated that he picked up that Ezra seemed agitated. She was captured on security footage talking to him, and Jason recalled that she mentioned that she was going to see Alex Woodworth to return some of the things she had of his. A concerned Jason followed Ezra to Alex's on his bicycle, a million thoughts rushing through his head. He stopped at Alex's driveway, where he saw her white Chevy Impala parked. He worked up the courage to walk up and go inside. Barging through the door, Jason saw that Alex and Ezra were having a serious conversation, but also masked themselves so Jason would think that everything was fine. The raising tension of the room was making him uncomfortable and suggested that the three of them go somewhere public to talk things through. Right as they were about to leave, police ended up at the house, who were called by a concerned neighbor. This would be the last time Jason would see Alex Woodworth alive. Hours later, Ezra would end up at that farm, bloodied and battered. The question became, where is Alex Woodworth, when police found out that Alex was nowhere to be found. Police returned to Don Sipple, the dairy farmer's house. There, they see footprints leading up and out to a clearing. They find an abandoned car at the top of the hill. Detectives use binoculars to look over at the car, where they see a lifeless body hanging out the back seat on the driver's side. Police declared Alex Woodworth dead on the scene. Detectives find stab wounds and stated that it was a gruesome crime scene and a crime of passion. Police bring in Ezra McCandless for an interview, as she was the last person to see him alive. During this interrogation, they noticed the word boy carved into her arm. She told police that Alex carved that into her arm, as back in high school she questioned her gender. Police, however, did not buy it. Ezra stated in that interview that Alex was in the driver's seat. Alex being right-handed meant that if it were true, to write the word boy in Ezra's point of view, he would have had to write it backwards. Once police poked that hole in her story, she admitted that she wrote it herself. Continuing on, Ezra said that she and Alex ended up in the back seat, and Alex whipped out a knife and began attacking her. Not knowing what to do, she grabbed the knife by the blade, taking it from Alex, and began stabbing him. Alex had suffered 16 stab wounds all over his head, neck, and torso. Detectives stated that the wounds on Ezra's hand did not match her story, and came to the conclusion that she was lying. Forensic experts began putting the crime scene and the events unfolding together. Ezra stated in that interview that the attack took place inside the car, but the evidence showed that the majority of the blood, hence the attack, took place outside. Ezra staged his body to make it look like the attack happened inside. Investigators believe that Ezra wanted to get back together with Jason so badly that Alex Woodworth had to be killed. On April 6, 2018, a couple weeks after Alex's death, Ezra McCandless was arrested and charged with first-degree intentional murder. The evidence all pointed to the fact that Ezra committed the murder. 18 months later, the case goes to court. Jason Mengel is now the prosecution's star witness. Jason testified that he saw Ezra that morning of the murder, and he had a sixth sense that something was off, and that's why he went after her. The defense calls Ezra to the stand. Her demeanor was too egocentric, her best friend recalled, and stated that she's seen this attention-seeking behavior from Ezra before. She appeared meek and timid in her testimony. When asked how their relationship developed, she explained in great detail, talking about their sex life. She testified that she liked to be submissive, and he liked to hurt her. But there was no evidence that he was involved in anything of the sort. Alex's family became upset as to how he was being portrayed as someone who could be violent. She continues that she calls Alex and meets up with him in her car and starts driving. She testified that she hoped to gain his friendship after the entire ordeal and just wanted to talk to him. Then she says all that changed when she got stuck on a muddy hill during this drive. During questioning, Ezra would finally explain in great detail how the attack happened. She stated that Alex got on top of her and started cutting her clothes away with his knife. She felt the cold blade against her skin and became scared. During her hospital stay, Ezra told police that she grabbed the knife by the blade. But during trial, her story changed. She now said she kneed him in the groin, which is when he dropped the knife. She picked it up and she began stabbing him anywhere and everywhere she could. During all this, all she could think was that he would kill her. She would then spend hours staging the crime scene and carve "boy" into her arm to make everyone think that he attacked her first. Ezra testified that she blacked out and forgot everything that took place, but prosecutors believe that she remembers everything that happened and deliberately took Alex to that remote location with the intention to kill him. They believe that Ezra took the knife from her father's kitchen, stabbed him, and as Alex lay dying, Ezra would stage the crime scene. Alex tried to block Ezra from getting at him, and that's how he ended up back in the car. Prosecutors believe that since Alex was hanging out of the back seat, Ezra wanted to drag him out, leave him there, and drive away, but was unable to do all that. Alex was found with a scarf around his neck, seemingly to stop the bleeding. Prosecutors believe that the wounds were so superficial that one or two alone wouldn't have killed him, but having suffered through 16 definitely had him fighting for his life. That was only the tip of the iceberg, as Ezra did one final, heartless act that would solidify her intent. She took Alex's phone and deliberately destroyed it. The prosecution alleged that this was to leave him with no means of being able to contact anyone, had he been able to. One thing that may be the biggest mystery, one that even Ezra can't explain, is why she carved the word "boy" into her arm. She forgot about it, why she did it, and what all happened leading up to it. There was trauma that contributed to it, the defense argued, and brought in a Harvard doctor to explain why she slowly started to remember everything. He states that as stress alleviates itself, and as a person starts calming down and more comfortable with the environment around them, these memories come back on its own. 2 years after Alex Woodworth was stabbed to death, the jury begins deliberations, and there was hope all around that she wouldn't be able to get away with a heinous crime. On November 1st, 2019, the jury came back with a verdict only 3 hours later: guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. Jason, having lived through it all, felt like he could have done something to change the outcome that afternoon, where they were all arguing, and that it didn't have to all end up this way. This is one regret that he will have to live with for the rest of his life. During sentencing, Ezra directly apologized to Alex's family for the events that had transpired. The judge, however, felt that her apology was insincere and sentenced her to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 50 years.